Hey, we want to take Chopper Ken from 5 Eyewitness News. Our crew is up and about this morning. Ken, where are you? Oh, shoot, we don't have Ken. Okay. This looks clearly to be Lake Street area over Minneapolis. Chopper 5 flying over the scene. You can see the smoke still billowing up, the fires. You can see the stream of water. Crews here clearly attempting to put these flames out in structures that are burning. Some of them look to be very large structures, several stories high. We have seen some interesting sights this morning. We have our crews out and about in both Minneapolis and in St. Paul, and our crews, these were the same ones that were out for us Thursday morning, and they said the scene this morning, the feel this morning, the energy, the tension is very different than yesterday. Yesterday, they talked about how it was a ghost town. There were fires, there was vandalism, there was looting, but this morning there was still the energy in the air, and we have seen lines. The National Guard is now on scene. We have seen lines of National Guard soldiers lining up along Lake Street, Hiawatha area, 21st, 22nd area. We have heard them over the loudspeaker. We're not exactly sure what their plan is this morning, but as we take this shot from Chopper 5, you can see fire after fire after fire burning in buildings in Minneapolis this morning. As mentioned, our crews are spread out throughout the city. We're going to check in with all of them with another hour of 5 Eyewitness News now. Another night of chaos following the in-custody death of George Floyd. The unrest is widespread in the Twin Cities. Here's what's new overnight. Evidence of National Guard soldiers now in areas of South Minneapolis. This video into our newsroom just a few hours ago. The Guard tweeting out saying that hundreds have been deployed. Meantime, Governor Tim Walz is scheduled to speak about the protest response in 4 hours at 10 o'clock this morning. President Donald Trump is weighing in on Twitter. He did overnight, criticizing Mayor Jacob Frey. Twitter flagged his tweets for violating its rules, saying it glorified violence. And Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey addressed the violence in the city in an early morning news conference. And we're going to hear more from him. We'll also get the president's tweets coming up in just a couple of minutes. But we want to start with the fires that are burning across the Twin Cities overnight from Minneapolis to St. Paul. The 3rd Minneapolis Police Precinct there on Lake Street was evacuated. It was abandoned, and then it was set ablaze by rioters. We have team coverage this morning, both in St. Paul and Minneapolis. We want to start live in Minneapolis this morning with our Ashley Zilka. You're at the scene as the sun comes up on another day. You were seeing National Guard soldiers as we checked in with you just moments ago. What's the scene there now?
I'd say hundreds of National Guard soldiers are behind me. I'm going to step aside so you can see what we're looking at. They just showed up within the past half hour, and they are standing there in a line. They're on the megaphone, I'd say, every 5 minutes, telling people they are violating Minnesota law and they will get arrested if they do not leave the area immediately. They've been saying that, I'd say, every 2 minutes. We are right now on 31st Avenue in Lake Street, so that's about 2 blocks down. They're just standing there, and people are listening. You can see cars are turning around. I had mentioned earlier there were protesters everywhere. There are troopers as well, and they are making sure this area is blocked off so people can move. I haven't seen any protesters. Like I mentioned, everyone is following this. They're right in front of the precinct, near the precinct, and they are protecting those buildings. You see some fires in the background, but right now it is much calmer out here because the National Guard is here. People are not disobeying them. I saw maybe one protester in front of them, but other than that, protesters have left this area where the National Guard is located.
Ashley, can you get a sense of what the National Guard is doing? We see the mass line that has been created here. Are they moving down the street, or are they more just holding this line, protecting the area behind them?
So they're holding the line, definitely protecting the area behind them, but then I was here and they move block by block, maybe 2 blocks at this time, every few minutes. So it's almost like they're trying to widen the area and get people as far back as they can. They want to clear this entire area, so they stand guard for a while, and then they move 1 block closer and closer to where we are at right now on Lake and 31st Avenue.
So they're expanding their perimeter around this area that has seen massive fires overnight.
Absolutely, and they keep saying you will get arrested if you do not leave the area immediately. You are violating Minnesota law.
And Ashley, a few moments ago, we were talking about how these fires are burning and we were seeing very few firefighters there. The mayor's telling us that this was a matter of safety for these fire crews. I would imagine as this line expands, crews will be able to go in and fight some of these fires. Have you seen any of that? Have you seen firefighters working their way in?
Not where I am. I haven't seen firefighters. I haven't seen police officers. But like you mentioned, this area is starting to clear out. So I'm assuming they'll be able to get close to all those buildings, those larger fires we saw earlier, because no one was putting them out at the time. And I think this is one of the main purposes, so people can start getting this city under control, because that area was pure chaos earlier this morning.
Yeah, tell viewers that are just tuning in right now, you were driving around at 4 o'clock this morning and you sent me a text telling me you were scared.
Yeah, and I mean, I usually don't feel that way, but that's why we stayed in the car, because obviously safety is #1 priority. And hundreds of protesters. So yesterday you saw me out here and it was a ghost town. There were angry protesters out here. There were protesters cheering, jumping on cars, glass everywhere. And I could not keep saying enough. So many fires. A Domino's was burnt down. Other 4-story buildings were burnt down. There was a lot of aggression, I would say. Cars completely burnt every block you would go, and we would try to go live outside, but neighborhood in neighborhood, it was just pure chaos.
And so that was this morning. As of 4 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock this morning, you were seeing people out and about, still energized.
Yeah, and absolutely, we saw people looting even. We had one guy run in front of us with grocery bags. But now this National Guard, I think, is really helping out, obviously, and they are clearing the area. They're staying put right now, but off camera, I can tell you they were moving block by block. So they want to clear this area as soon as possible so they could get in and fight these fires.
Okay. Ashley, thank you for that. We appreciate you being there and telling us, what's going on and showing us what exactly is going on. We do want to bring in our Ben Henry now. He's also live there along Lake Street in Minneapolis. And Ben, the damage from overnight is so widespread. We're not just talking the 3rd precinct here.
No. As we were driving in from actually in North Minneapolis, we were taking 94, and just as the sun was brightening the sky a bit, you could see a main chunk of black smoke, which was really intense, but then you saw different pockets of smoke. And as I'm looking behind my photographer, I see one large plume of smoke because we were just there. That's the Dollar General. But then I'm seeing about a half a mile down another thick black plume of smoke as well. And then we turn back around to the Guard soldiers, and it's the same story. Can't see it as well, but I'm seeing 1, 2 plumes of smoke. I know we've got state troopers on the highway as well, keeping a bird's eye view, keeping an eye on the soldiers, but the soldiers are doing a great job. I'm fortunate at Hiawatha Avenue and Lake Street that things are calm. There's not a group of people. There were a few people that were honestly harassing the soldiers, which was upsetting to see, but they were just standing calm and, again, keeping the peace. That's the idea, right? That's the hope as we bring in these soldiers. It may be intense to see, but as we've seen, it is clearly needed. Megan, I'll leave it with you now if you have anything you want to ask.
Well, yeah, I'm curious, are you kind of seeing what Ashley was seeing? Because she's not too far from you, and she's seeing this line. It was a very solid line of National Guard troops, and she said every couple of minutes they're advancing another block, appearing to try to widen the perimeter around some of where the most severe damage has been done.
Ashley and I have been talking on the phone because we want to coordinate, make sure we're getting the best coverage out there, making sure we're not stepping on each other's toes. And when she sent me that picture, I was taken back because I thought what's behind me is intense. But that image that she sent me, and we'll get it out on social media if we weren't able to share it on air, was unbelievable. It was something that you see, as you maybe study history and you look back at some pivotal points in our time, some volatile points in our time, that line of police pushing that back. Now to answer your question, sorry for ranting. I am not seeing that. I have a feeling this may be kind of a boundary. Maybe they're setting it right here. Again, we're underneath the 55 bridge because they're standing, they're not moving, don't have the numbers that Ashley saw, but there's also a line of trucks, as you can see as well, keeping a line. I'm also seeing on the ramp here Metro Transit buses as well. Tough to see from this angle. I'm not getting much closer to the soldiers, but I've got a feeling this may be some kind of a boundary they're trying to create, Megan.
Well, especially since we know that Metro Transit is down through the weekend and they're not running buses or light rails. So interesting use of the buses there. Okay, Ben, stay safe. We'll get back to you in just a moment. But now we want to talk about the daylight, giving us a much better idea of just how much damage the violent unrest has caused overnight. We do have Chopper 5 up over Minneapolis. Pilot Ken Melchior joining us now this morning with a bird's eye view of things, Ken.
Yes, we're centered right now over Lake Street in Hiawatha. You're looking at an active fire that's just east on Lake Street from the 3rd Precinct that's engulfed in flames. The smoldering remnants of the liquor store you can see in the lower left-hand corner. So that's more or less a fire that's just burning out right now. But the active fire that firefighters are working on is that apartment building. If we go down Lake Street, there is a retail mall that's on fire. We saw this yesterday. The Dollar General store had fire coming out of the front door. As of this morning, the building is engulfed in flames. As we continue now down Lake Street, we see 3 more active fires, one of them engulfed in flames. There is no police or firefighters at the location, at that particular location. We'll investigate that a little bit later in the broadcast. If we pan up towards downtown Minneapolis and look at the skyline, you'll see smoke over the IDS building. There's 2 active fires going on in North Minneapolis. So as of right now, there are 7 buildings on fire along Lake Street, 2 in North Minneapolis.
Oh my goodness.
And that's not even taking into consideration the activity that happened at University Avenue, which we'll look into later. Back to you.
Hey, Ken, I'm curious from your viewpoint, if you're able to see some of the National Guard presence that Ashley and Ben have been showing us this morning. Are you able to see from up in the sky this massive wall that Ashley had behind her in her live shot? She's at Lake in Hiawatha this morning, too.
Yes, the area that we're at right now, actually the airspace below us is closed because of the National Guard. We're flying high above that right now. I can see the Humvees, I can see military vehicles down there, but I don't see any of the actual National Guard soldiers. We'll start to look for those and try to get back to you later in the broadcast, see if we can get you some pictures of their activity.
Yeah, just curious. This morning we saw a couple, and then we saw a couple of hundred, what it appeared, and we know that the National Guard has said that it is calling in 500 or so.
Well, yeah, you can see at that intersection right there, there's 2 military vehicles in the lower part of your screen, and police, and it looks like a line of soldiers, National Guard, right there by the burnt-out liquor store in the 3rd Precinct.
Ken, look at that parking lot. That is incredible. Look at the damage, and look at them making their move now.
Yes, we'll try to figure out what's going on there. They're sweeping that whole street. The building that's on the left is the 3rd Precinct. The building on, the left is the liquor store. The building on the right is the 3rd Precinct, and we're going to follow that activity and see where it takes us.
Yeah, we want to stay with you, Ken, and we want to kind of watch this and kind of see where it goes too. I mean, we're reporting on the fires and we're seeing the damage from the ground, and this morning we're taking the shot where we're seeing the National Guard and the line of them, and Ashley's telling us that every couple of minutes they're moving a block or 2. They're on the loudspeaker telling people to clear out of the area. They're making vehicles turn around. But to take that shot of that intersection, I mean, that looks just unreal that is happening in Minneapolis. In this day and age, it looks like a war zone.
Yes, I know. I remember as a child when they had the riots in Detroit, and I saw pictures like this on the television. As a kid, I sat in front of it, absolutely mesmerized what was going on in our country. I never expected that to happen in the city that I lived in.
Yeah. So, Ken, tell us, where are they moving at this point? So this is Lake Street looking east?
They're south of Lake Street right now on the side street that the 3rd Precinct occupies. So they're moving south right now, which would be parallel to Hiawatha.
Gotcha. Okay. Wow. It's a very different scene than we took yesterday, and Ashley kind of talked a little bit about that, Ken, and maybe you can too for us this morning. She mentioned that yesterday morning when we were reporting at this time on the fires that were burning in the buildings, that it was almost like a ghost town. People were coming out to see what all the chaos was overnight. They were hearing the sounds, they were waking up and smelling the smoke, but it was more people curious what had happened in their neighborhood. This morning, it looks very different with all of these armed personnel.
Yes, it definitely has escalated dramatically from the last day. I mean, all of the activity ramped up around 6:15 when police came out of the 3rd Precinct and tried to regain control of the perimeter around their building on Lake Street and deployed tear gas and a line of police along there so later in the evening so that the fire department could work on putting out the fires. That has changed dramatically now, you know, with the National Guard, and there is going to be a sense much more of regaining control of the area. You know, the people that live here, when they come out as onlookers to see what kind of activities happening in the area that they live, they get a bit of a myopic viewpoint. They're only seeing what's in front of them a block or two. From Chopper 5 up here, we can see in a glance what's happening citywide. And as I mentioned earlier, it almost looks, when you see the pictures in the camera, what you would see in a war zone. Yeah. You see 7 or 8 burnt out buildings in an area and then military occupying the street.
Well,
Back
and
to you.
The smoke just rising across the city, building to building to building. And clearly from this image here, the city is doing what it can to regain control because it was out of control last night. Okay, Ken, we're going to let you continue to survey things from the sky. We now want to talk about the damage happening in other parts of the Twin Cities. We're not just talking Minneapolis. There have been fires. There's been looting. It's a vastly different scene, though, in St. Paul this morning. Fire crews and police are responding to calls into the overnight hours there. Some of these buildings burning. In Minneapolis, we know that crews at times had to pull back and let those fires burn. In St. Paul, it looks like they're doing a little different tactic as far as the attack goes on this. Let's bring in Chris because he's along University Avenue this morning after an overnight fire near Allianz Field. Chris, that's where you were earlier around 4.
Yep. Yeah, Meg, we've been out and about now for a couple hours and probably have come across at least 10 active firefights. St. Paul Fire is out and they are really trying to knock these fires down. Just a couple of minutes ago, they left. We're here at Chatham University. I want to show you this Speedway store that was just absolutely ransacked. Fire crews left here just a couple of minutes ago because there was reports that there's a chance that there could be a reignition because there's accelerants that are in this particular place. I'm talking lighter fluid. I'm talking things that are actually spread. Chris, can you show right here, right down here? There are several bottles of lighter fluid that are laying on the ground. There is water, there is oil, and as we come a little bit closer here to show you the inside of this Speedway store, I've heard several of our field crews over the last couple of hours refer to it as a war zone. I almost feel like it feels more like the damage after a tornado, the way things have been just strewn about. Back out here in this parking lot, you've got a door that's laying right here, and then you've got stuff from the store, garbage as far as you can see because of the looting that's gone on. I had a chance just a short time ago to talk to a longtime employee of this particular convenience store. She says she's been here for 20 years. Can you smell that? Can you smell that lighter fluid? Let's come away a little bit. She says she's been here for 20 years. And she had tears in her eyes, and she really had a hard time talking about what's been going on in St. Paul. I talked to a fire official here on the scene, and he said it's been a hard night. It's been a really difficult night, and everyone's extremely upset about what's happening here. I want to show you some video from overnight of a couple of the other fires that were burning, if we can do that. At one point, we heard somewhere around 170 different buildings damaged here in the city of St. Paul. That is a significant amount of damage. And these crews are spread thin. They've brought in crews from surrounding areas. We just saw a Woodbury fire crew helping here at this particular situation at this Speedway. And our understanding is that there are crews from surrounding areas here to try to help to put out these fires. But we're going to go back to you. We're going to get a chance to get away from this building because, quite honestly, the smell of the lighter fluid is concerning me a little bit. Yeah. And talk to some folks here, and Meg will reconnect again in a little bit.
Okay, sounds good, Chris. Thank you. Let's Bring in Josie now and talk a little bit about what you're seeing. Still, the smoke just rising as these cameras are panned from traffic management across the city. It's one building after another, Josie.
In Minneapolis, specifically for the second morning in a row, that's where we're focusing our traffic management cameras here from MnDOT. In the last 15 minutes or so, I have seen at different times emergency vehicles are down and up Hiawatha. Now, Hiawatha itself is open. We're watching that plume of smoke here from the 3rd Precinct along Lake Street. And in the corner of the screen, you can still see some smoke there. And Ken was talking about this from the sky, too, about multiple fires in that area south of I-94. And that's kind of what we're seeing. This is the big one, but I am also seeing other areas of smoke, too. As we pull up this map, I just want to mention those ramps to Lake Street are staying closed. And Metro Transit has suspended all bus and light rail service. Off to the east side, just to point out this ramp closure here, West 94 at Hamlin Avenue. And that's going to stay closed until further notice. If you take 94 this morning, as I did, you may still smell the smoke and see some visible smoke, too, on 94 in the Midway, Megan.
Okay, Josie, thank you for that. We are going to take a quick break, but we wanted to leave you with this shot. The line of people you see at the bottom of the screen here, those black dots, that's the National Guard, and they are in Minneapolis this morning, and they are expanding their perimeter. We've seen them march block by block methodically this morning. Armed guards, tanks, trucks, you name it. We're going to check in with our pilot Ken Melchior and our reporters there on the ground coming up when we come right back. You're watching 5 Eyewitness News.